United Nations is warning today of an approaching global water crisis because of pollution, global warming and overconsumption. It's published a new report on the issue before the first dedicated...
In July 2003, the Mars Odyssey's discovery of water beneath the red planet's surface was published in a conference at California. News people immediately gave the world the news. Every channel and talk show host putting their own little spin on the matter and its implications, minds racing to think of puns that the billions around the globe hadn't already heard. But something constantly stuck to every news ticker and anchor's story. Everyone was talking about the possibility of life on Mars, but a little disclaimer needed to be put at the end of the sentence every time the frankly bold statement was made. Mars may be able to sustain life as we know it. Life as we know it is heavily reliant on water. If sentience and consciousness and reproduction can exist in a species that doesn't need water, that could qualify as another kind of life. But then again, we could decide to call it something else entirely. In which case we'd be sanctifying what is essentially a postulate that life is objectively impossible without water. Water is more than just a cure for parched throats and something to wash ourselves with. Water is a very important component of very important chemicals. Water has a huge role in regulating the Earth's climates, atmosphere, and biomes. The flow and availability of water determines the terrain in any given region and what species can live there. Water makes up blood, which transports materials around the body. Most of our cells have semi-solid content that includes quite an amount of water. The brain and spinal cord are perpetually suspended in a solution of electrolytes and other solutes, all using water as the ultimate solvent. Our bodies need water to create fluids like saliva, sweat, tears, and other secretions. Every cell of a human, animal, and plant is part water. The biochemical processes with which our bodies digest food, use and store nutrients, create new tissues and repair damaged ones, are all dependent upon water. Without water, there would be no survival, no reproduction, and no human life. This is why the human species comes with an inbuilt physiological need to drink water frequently. Thirst is a potent motive of life. Scientists have had little choice but to accept water for its miraculous properties. To ancient alchemists, water symbolized life and reproduction, and for good reason. Humans from ancient to modern times have been drawn to water bodies, settling down near lakes and rivers, sure that where there is water, there is life. Somewhere around 60% of the human body's volume is simply water molecules. Human lungs are 83% water by volume. Muscles and kidneys are 79% water by volume. The brain and the heart are about 73% water by volume. But with all this water content, how come we don't have the same consistency as Jell-O or a pouch filled with liquid that sloshes around with every little movement? Human cells are microscopic, and most of our cells are encased in a membrane called the phospholipid bilayer. This double envelope is hydrophobic, meaning it won't let water in, at least under normal circumstances. Oftentimes, some of the water we drink also ends up in cells, bypassing the phospholipid bilayer with molecules called aquaporins. Water created in the cell during reactions such as the Krebs cycle is called metabolic water and is stored and used intracellularly. Because such tiny amounts of water molecules are present in each cell, separated by hydrophobic membranes, the human body can afford to contain a huge net volume of water without letting it pool and compromise our stature. One can't really say water is created at any point in time. Perhaps water in its most inaccessible form is when it's inside a living organism's body as organic material. Inaccessible to us humans, that is. We have to wait for organic matter to decompose and come into contact with some sort of plant, the magic machines that can make use of water in this inaccessible form. Lucky for us, Plants naturally have all the right tools to rescue water and send it back into the water cycle so it can be pure water again. Plants are able to take up water molecules from the soil and use it as a raw material for photosynthesis. And photosynthesis is how the sun's energy enters the Earth's systems in the first place. For water everywhere it is needed. Clouds precipitate to form rain. Some rainwater seeps into the ground. Some gets taken up by plants. Some eventually flows into lakes and seas and oceans. Except groundwater, most rainwater soon evaporates from water bodies or transpirates from leaves. The vapors form clouds once more, and the water cycle continues. A plethora of natural phenomena depend on the water cycle. Seeds germinate and fruits and vegetables grow using water. Humans, animals, birds, and insects depend directly and indirectly on water and chemical compounds that include water molecules. You know how they say the sun is the source of all energy on Earth? Well, water is something of a similarly all-encompassing source, but of life itself instead of energy. From parched throats to death and desolation, water shortages and crises have always plagued humans in our time on the planet. But how, given that water is the most abundant fluid on Earth? The most significant threat comes in the form of plant scarcity. Deserts have little vegetation, serving as grim warnings of what happens when humans don't conserve water the way they should. Where plants and trees are a resource for every creature on the planet to share, humans have a tendency to use them in selfish ways, cutting them down for their wood and sometimes just to create space. When you take plants out of the equation, we are left with practically no way to utilize the energy of the sun. When creatures die, their organic matter is decomposed by smaller creatures, and the soil becomes very nutritious. But there are no plants to turn those nutrients into food for us or for animals. There are no plants to take water from the soil and transpirate it out into the atmosphere. Humans have to learn how difficult it is to survive in areas without water, and then think how difficult it would be to survive on a planet without clean, drinkable water.